Hello, my friends. When Emily did her tell-all, or her tea spill sesh, if you will,
How do you do, fellow kids?
with Mr. Snowflake, Amber had a bit of a crash out. Even before Snowflake's video came out, Amber was going live and trying to get ahead of it by saying, actually, whatever you're about to hear, Emily was the problem. She's the bad person in all this. And anybody with a brain could tell that she was just trying to flip the script and use Darvo to her advantage. And there were a couple of things that she said that stuck out to me. And one of them was when she said, "You know I'm not a narcissist."
But you know that I'm not a narcissist. You know that I'm not. You know that. But the behaviors that you demonstrate, whether that be publicly or behind closed doors, shows textbook narcissist behavior.
And the reason she said that is she was trying to tell everybody that she was in the middle of a BPD meltdown, not a narcissistic rage. And she was basically saying, it can't be a narcissistic rage because I'm not a narcissist. And the way she knows that is she claims that narcissists don't feel empathy.
How do I figure this out? Because so many armchair psychologists or whatever it may be think that I'm a narcissist, but narcissists don't feel empathy towards someone, and I feel so much sadness towards Emily because I know Emily and I know her mental health and I know the things that she goes through, and I just feel bad.
And that stuck with me because I remember thinking that doesn't sound right. But I'm not a mental health professional, so I was not equipped to immediately respond to that. And with all the other things she was saying, that was kind of a small blip on the radar. But I received an email from somebody who is currently finishing their master's degree in psychology, and they actually made a post on Reddit about empathy and narcissism following Amber's claim.
Narcissists don't feel empathy towards someone.
And I thought we would go over that today. Now, I have not read the whole thing. I skimmed through it a little bit just to kind of get an idea of what it was. And immediately I was like, yes, I want to talk about this because it's really interesting and it clearly shows that not only can they feel empathy, but in a lot of cases, it's a big part of their arsenal when they're trying to manipulate people. So let's just see what this psychology student has to say. And again, this is not medical advice or anything like that. I just found it fascinating. If you'd like to like and subscribe, that would literally be hectic. I'm not going to lie. So here's the post on Reddit. It says, over the past few weeks, I've seen this topic pop up repeatedly in comment sections on reaction channels and especially in Amberlynn's own live streams. The conversation often circles back to a supposed clear-cut difference between narcissistic rage and a borderline meltdown, with one of the main claims being that narcissists are incapable of empathy. As a therapist who has worked extensively with personality disorders, I can tell you that assumption is simply wrong. A true and complete absence of empathy is much more in line with antisocial personality disorder, what most people would colloquially associate with psychopathy, not narcissism. So somebody who completely lacks empathy is somebody you might call a psychopath, not a narcissist. I think part of this misconception stems from the way empathy is framed in everyday life. In casual conversation, empathy is almost always discussed as an inherently positive trait. Something warm, caring, pro-social. We tend to think that the default for anybody who feels empathy towards somebody would be to help them or to use it in a positive way. But if we strip it down to its most basic definition, empathy is simply the ability to recognize and respond to the emotions of others. Not inherently good or bad. That's it. By itself, it's value neutral. Empathy can be absolutely used for kindness, comfort, and connection, but it can just as easily be weaponized. In the wrong hands, it becomes a tool for manipulation, control, or emotional harm. When we romanticize empathy as always good, we overlook the fact that being skilled at reading others doesn't automatically mean someone will use that skill with good intentions. So think about what they're saying there. You might recognize somebody's emotional state. You might have empathy for them and say, oh, they're going through this thing or they're sad because of this thing. And a well intentioned person would say, I feel bad for them. I'd like to help them. Whereas a person with ill intent might say, ooh, they're feeling bad. How can I use that? I want to get something out of this. I know that this thing makes them feel bad, or they're feeling bad in this moment because of this thing. Now I know exactly what button to press to get what I want. Narcissists are absolutely capable of empathy. In fact, they often have a very sharp instinct for reading the emotional states of others. This ability is one of the main reasons they can be so effective at manipulation. Which makes sense, right? We can all manipulate to an extent, but the reason narcissists are generally thought of as great manipulators and thought of in a pretty negative light is because they're so good at manipulation. And part of that is reading the emotions of others to maximize their manipulation. If a narcissist truly had no sense of how others were feeling, they wouldn't be nearly as skilled at pushing the right buttons or hitting the most vulnerable spots. And that's it. They know exactly what to do to get what they want and to get you to do what they want you to do. What sets narcissism apart is not a lack of awareness of other people's feelings, but a tendency to prioritize their own emotional injuries above anyone else's.
I said things that were crazy that I didn't even remember me saying. But my pain and my hurt and just like the betrayal of it all hurts a lot. You guys have to understand that Emily has done a lot of things to hurt me. She knows this. I've hurt her. She knows this. I know this. The things that she has done to hurt me has like sent me down like literally a spiral.
A narcissist might know full well that they've hurt someone, but they view their own pain as deeper, more valid, and more deserving of attention. From that perspective, retaliatory behavior feels justified.
And I followed you in there with my BPD meltdown, my tantrum. Yeah, I did. And I'm able to admit that. My pain turned me into a monster because of what you did.
They were hurt worse, so in their mind, their actions are fair game. Does that sound familiar?
Talk about toxic. We're now arguing about the argument we had 2 days prior. Why are we arguing about that? Because Amberlynn's hurting. Amberlynn's hurting from the betrayal, from the lie, the deceit, etc., etc.
Betrayal, betrayal, betrayal.
Just betrayal. Like, you go crazy.
That's all Amber would talk about. Yes, I was abusive. Yes, I pushed her down.
How come you pushed me?
Yes, I had BPD meltdowns. Yes, I kept her from sleeping. But it's because of the betrayal.
Sometimes she's civil and sometimes she's absolutely unhinged. What makes me unhinged, Emily? What makes me unhinged? You. Your lies, your deceit, your betrayal, your cruel words, you're mean. You are mean-spirited. You're a mean person.
And another thing she said was, I'm hurting so much. Everybody's hurting me, and narcissists don't hurt like that.
Emily's hurting me. The trolls are hurting me. The reaction channels are hurting me. The haters are hurting me. Everyone is hurting me. I am hurt by everyone. There it is. One thing about narcissists, they don't hurt like that.
Which is kind of the opposite of the truth. She felt so much hurt and almost like righteous indignation. She felt justified because she was so hurt in treating Emily however she wanted to treat her. And that became very clear. The longer she spoke, the more obvious it became that she felt completely justified in anything she did to Emily because Emily had a Tumblr and because Emily talked to haters.
She said it was a coworker. Turns out it was a hater that she was friends with where she would talk shit about me. She would look at me dead ass in the eyes and say, oh, this is someone I work with. It was a hater who despised me. She was on Tumblr looking at naked women bigger than me.
That hurt her. She felt betrayed. Therefore, obviously, I'm going to retaliate. Obviously, I'm going to hurt her. And unlike the calculated manipulation often seen in antisocial personality disorder or psychopathy, narcissistic manipulation can be highly instinctive. It's not necessarily a deliberate, step-by-step plan to deceive someone. Instead, it's a rapid, almost reflexive pattern of shifting strategies to regain control, repair their image, or punish perceived slights. That is Amberlynn. Her only motivation is her. And so she's not thinking necessarily like, how can I hurt Emily? How can I manipulate this person? It's just natural. It's just the way she operates. It's a reflex. And so to her, she doesn't see it as narcissism or manipulation. It's just the way she behaves. That's it. You can see this in Amberlynn's recent meltdowns. During her live streams, she cycles quickly between very different and sometimes contradictory emotional states and approaches.
And they would just sit there and talk bad while I'm literally sleeping on her fucking bed, bro. What the fuck? Because I genuinely did not think that my girlfriend was gonna do this again. How come you pushed me? I'm like, what is actually happening? So she like, I don't know. It was this whole fucking thing, and I was like, this cannot be real right now. Damn, I look fat. I can lose weight now.
One moment she's tearful, the next she's sarcastic, and then she's defensive, then self-deprecating. This isn't a conscious checklist she's ticking off. It's an automatic trial and error process testing which emotional stance gets the most effective response from her audience in that moment. That makes so much sense. She wants people to feel sorry for her. She wants people to be on her side. She wants to paint the picture that she's a victim and a good person and an empath. And so she tries all these different things, hoping that her audience will buy into one of them. That's where the danger, quote unquote, of the empathy myth comes in. If you underestimate the role empathy plays in narcissism, you underestimate the ways a narcissist can read a room, anticipate emotional reactions, and use those responses to influence the dynamic. Amberlynn, whether intentionally or not, is an almost textbook example of this action.
Textbook narcissist behavior.
And I have said that for so long. The more you read into narcissism, the more it sounds like Amberlynn. Her ability to pivot, adapt, and emotionally probe the people watching her, even while in the middle of an emotional outburst, is not a sign of someone who lacks empathy. It's a sign of someone who uses it differently. I love this. I love this post so much. And it's because she's not using it for good. And again, it's probably not even intentional. She doesn't even realize it's happening. But that's what's happening. She's using empathy to gain sympathy, to gain attention, and to Darvo, to flip the script, and to manipulate. Another crucial piece that often gets overlooked is just how narcissists fixate on the way they're perceived by others. It might sound counterintuitive, but this hyper-awareness usually stems from a fragile sense of self-worth. And I've mentioned that a couple times where I've said they have this facade, right? They want you to think that they are confident, that they are a good person. And in Amber's case, she wants you to think she is a victim. She wants sympathy. And when somebody comes out and says something about her that contradicts that, she doesn't know what to do with herself because it starts showing this fragile sense of self-worth. Beneath the outward confidence or even arrogance is often a deep fear of being seen as inadequate. That fear is so intolerable because it threatens to confirm the insecurities they already carry about themselves. And she will probably admit, if you were to say, do you have a high self-esteem? She would probably say no. But then she will go on and say stuff like, I love my body and you can't make me not love my body. I love the way I look.
A lot of people um like my legs, and that's that. That's reality. So it doesn't matter. I'm not gonna let people make me feel bad about my body, or make me feel bad about what I look like, or make me feel bad about anything like that.
We know that's not true. We know she is highly insecure of her body, of her relationships. And that's why she is so hell bent on convincing everybody that she gets recognized every time she leaves the apartment.
I get recognized every single time I leave this apartment and I go somewhere, like with a population of people who are there.
She says literally every time I leave the apartment, somebody recognizes me. We know that's not true. And she's always saying that people are telling her how beautiful she is.
He literally messaged me and he was like, it was so good to see you. You're so beautiful.
And how they're always wanting to get pictures with her. But nobody's ever seen any, except for one that was a troll. So she doesn't have the confidence that she portrays. And if you'll remember, she did the self-deprecating and the sarcasm and all the different emotions in one live stream. So I would wager if you said, how's your self-esteem? She might kind of do the same thing. Oh, I have no self-esteem. You can see this dynamic play out with Amberlynn in a very clear way. She often gets tangled in obvious contradictions or outright false statements. And what's striking is that she doesn't even seem aware of just how inconsistent her own words are in the moment. That's because in those instances, the immediate priority isn't factual accuracy, it's salvaging the image she wants to project in that exact situation. So she just plays moment by moment. I need to make sure that whatever I'm saying right now is what I'm getting across. If it makes no sense in 10 minutes, or if it makes no sense compared to what I said 10 minutes ago, that doesn't matter. This sentence and this statement is all I really care about in this moment, is making this seem like it's true. The drive to protect that external perception can be so reflexive, meaning she just does it without thinking, that it overrides the awareness of whether what's being said is logically consistent or even believable. It's not that the lies are always meticulously planned, which I would say they're not ever planned. She just says stuff. Often they're a byproduct of that urgent, almost instinctive need to reestablish control over how she is being perceived in the here and now. As a result, they are constantly scanning for cues about how others see them, fine-tuning their behavior to protect and maintain a favorable image. And I would say that's why she's always looking at chat, but I mean, she's live streaming. All live streamers are always looking at chat. But she is always really looking for the positive reinforcement, for the people that are agreeing with her and believing some of the stuff that she says.
Here to say Tammy sucks. Yeah, Gabby, thank you.
That's fucked up. Thank you for everyone supporting me and seeing that.
Thank you, Weasel. It really doesn't make sense why she was with you. She was steadily talking shit about you to everyone. I know.
When they perceive even a slight threat to that image, whether through someone's words, actions, or even their own interpretations, restoring or defending that external perception can become the highest priority, overriding almost everything else in the moment. And that's that dam breaking. If you'll remember in one video, I mentioned that she builds up this kind of facade or this dam that's holding back the true Amberlynn, who has little to no confidence and is just a horrible person. But every time somebody says something about her, like a reaction channel or Emily or something like that, that pokes a hole in that facade or in that dam. And so she then feels the need to say something about it. That's why she always talks about what reaction channels are saying, because she comes out and she plugs that hole. Well, when Emily came out and said everything, did a tell all, and she was somebody who knew Amberlynn behind the scenes, and kind of same with Tammy, right? These are people that can spill a lot of tea on Amber. In her mind, it's like the dam was breaking. Everything somebody says about her lying, every time Emily mentions something about the abuse, she has to fix that perception. She can't help it. And if what she says makes no sense, it doesn't matter. And I would say she's like, I'll deal with that later, but I don't think she's even thinking that far in advance. It's just right this second, what can I say to get people on my side or to make me feel like people are on my side? So it's not even really that she doesn't care whether what she's saying is true or not, because she doesn't, but that's not really even in her thought process. So this was really, really interesting because it is Amberlynn to the T. And it shows that most of what she's doing without even knowing it. But it's just a reflex. It's just a thing she does. It's her MO. And when I say MO, of course, just in case you don't know what that means, it means modus operandi. And it is a particular way or method of doing something, especially one that is characteristic or well established. Amber telling lies, trying to salvage her image by any means necessary, saying whatever she can think of in the moment, whether it makes sense or not, that is her MO. And using empathy as a weapon against her partners, against her mom, against her aunt, against anybody who might not give her what she wants, is also her MO. If you go back and watch the Beck era, almost every interaction between Amber and Beck is Amber just understanding how to push Beck's buttons and using empathy, those little jabs that make Beck feel bad.
Becky says, "You know what? I used to think these were for decoration, but I just recently found out they're actually for bikes."
And people always tell me, you'd look really good with short hair, but I feel like I disagree. I feel like people with rounder, fatter faces look bad with short hair because it makes their face look rounder and fatter.
She understood what hurt Beck. That was empathy. And she would use that to make herself feel better by putting Beck down. So I hope you found this as interesting as I did. And I had never really thought of empathy as anything but sort of a positive thing. This kind of opened my eyes to realize that it's completely neutral. It's all about how you use your empathy. And one thing that Amber is right about is that she does have empathy. But I don't think that is a mark in her favor, because I don't think she uses it for good. I think the empathy that she does feel, she weaponizes. So, as I've said so many times, the more you look into narcissism, the more you see Amberlynn Reid. She really is the textbook. But she really is the textbook example of narcissism. It is wild how on the nose her narcissism really is. So, I appreciate you guys so much. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.